Hey everyone, Laurie Spencer here. Welcome back to the Dark Side of RFK Jr., episode 18. And we've been reading Jerry Oppenheimer's book, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and the Dark Side of the Dream. We're closing in here on the final chapters of this very dark book. And I should probably put a warning here at the beginning of the video. What we're going to discuss in these final two chapters is for adults only. It's deeply disturbing and sometimes graphic material. We will be dealing with the topic of suicide. So if that's triggering for you or difficult, you might want to tune out and shoo the children out of the room. And if you're following along in the hardcover edition, we are going in today on page 336, chapter 36, Fatal Ending. In the months before Mary Kennedy decided to take her life in May of 2012, she made a number of alarming comments to a longtime friend. She allegedly said she feared for her life, claimed that Bobby repeatedly told her that she would be better off dead, and that it would be so much easier if she killed herself. Whether her disturbing claims were true or false, no one knew for certain. She asserted that she had started feeling, quote, gaslighted in the marriage by Bobby, and that he kept telling her that she was a borderline personality. However, Mary's own therapist didn't believe that she suffered from borderline personality disorder, a form of mental illness, but had some of the illness's traits, which were considered common and difficult to diagnose. By gaslighted, Mary was referring to the 1944 film Gaslight, in which Charles Boyer attempts to make Ingrid Bergman believe she's gone mad. And Mary told a confidant that Bobby was making her feel like she was crazy. Moreover, Bobby had gained temporary custody of their children in 2011, which was devastating for their mother. At the same time, Mary claimed to her friends that she had been banned from visiting the Kennedy compound and had been cut off from the family she'd known since she was a teenager. All of it caused her great anxiety. She started drinking and reportedly twice went to an expensive rehab facility in California. In April of 2012, about 5 weeks before she killed herself, she took a drink after previously having attained sobriety. Concerned, she immediately sought out a sponsor in Alcoholics Anonymous and worked through one of AA's intensive, emotionally demanding 12 steps. The two spent some 60 hours together, but her rage and resentment toward Bobby was barely touched upon. Mary had once told a friend that she felt she was addicted to him and was advised to take off her wedding rings in order to empower herself. On several weekends at the Kennedy home, Mary and her sponsor spent 8 to 12 hours together, during which time they read, word for word, the 576-page Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, the Bible of AA. Mary understood that after she was finished, she would be in better emotional shape to handle upcoming child custody hearings that she faced with Bobby and his lawyers. She felt that she was being screwed regarding custody of the children, quote, because all of these legal people were all Bobby's people, she told a confidant. Because of her work with her sponsor, Mary was emotionally healthier than she had been in a long time. She had taken up yoga and was going to classes every day, along with religiously attending AA meetings. She had begun grooming herself again and had even gone to a party with a friend who thought she looked terrific. There was an extreme lift in her, a friend noted. She was really peaking. She had turned a corner. Feeling more confident, Mary was considering going to the California-headquartered Hoffman Institute Foundation, which she was said to have heard about from Bobby's brother, Max Kennedy, who had told her he had gone through the week-long personal growth retreat and that it had been life-changing for him. The almost $5,000 program billed itself as helping clients, quote, identify negative behaviors, moods, and ways of thinking that developed unconsciously and were conditioned in childhood. Mary had also become involved in a craft project. She had done some redecorating and had a number of empty paint cans that she didn't want to throw in the trash because it wasn't an environmentally friendly thing to do. Instead, she had decided to cover the cans with the remnants of an expensive fabric that she had used on some furniture. The fabric-covered cans were to become part of a piece of furniture that she had conceived. But when she returned to the design store to get the remnants, they apparently were lost. When Mary left the shop, she said in passing, "If you can't find them, I'll just kill myself." Later, the clerk found it all so sad and spooky when Mary actually did commit suicide just a few weeks later. Although they were separated, Bobby's alleged womanizing was an ongoing, agonizing concern for Mary. In one instance, she had begun to suspect that he had become involved with a socialite who was an influential board member of his Riverkeeper organization. After the alleged affair was reported in the New York Post, Ann Colley claimed that she and Bobby were merely professional colleagues and dear friends. The accusation that I had a romantic relationship with Bobby Kennedy is false. Mary Kennedy also claimed to a confidant that Bobby's Sprint Samsung cell phone directory contained the first names and telephone numbers of more than 40 women who were from all over the United States, Canada, and even Paris, France. Moreover, she claimed to have found evidence suggesting that when he traveled, he used the alias Robert Strong. On the evening of Monday, May 14th, 2012, 3 days before Mary would take her own life, Bobby's sister Carrie arrived unexpectedly at the Kennedy home in Mount Kisco, at a time when Mary was meeting there with someone else. It was, Carrie would say, a friendly visit, that they had a long talk about school and summer plans for Mary and Bobby's daughter Kyra, the second of their 4 children, who was turning 17 in July, just 2 months away. According to Carrie, quote, Mary said Kyra was excited about going to Los Angeles to visit a friend, and Mary wanted to be sure that Kyra had time to spend with her Hyannisport cousins. But there was another side to the girlfriend chat. Carrie was said to have been putting intense pressure on Mary that night and in the weeks before to sign Bobby's divorce settlement agreement, described as a, quote, very bitter, harsh, and draconian proposal, limiting Mary's custody of her children and slashing her financial support. The house guest was, quote, terrified at the pressure that Carrie had been putting on Mary and felt that she should have reported it to someone. Carrie's visit was so disturbing to Mary that she burst into tears, and probably for the first time in the many years of their friendship, she ordered Carrie Kennedy to leave her home. A few weeks before the troubling visit, Carrie had accompanied Mary on road trips to see her sons, 11-year-old William Finbar Kennedy at the Stratton Mountain School in the ski country of Vermont, and 17-year-old John Connor Kennedy at Deerfield Academy in Massachusetts. A friend of Mary's who had heard about the trips said Carrie had hammered constantly at Mary to sign Bobby's settlement and told her, quote, there's not an endless pool of money. You're making everybody broke. Disheartened by the change in the woman she had always trusted unconditionally and considered her the best, if not her only friend within the Kennedy clan, Mary had confided to others that Carrie had become, quote, Bobby's mouthpiece, as one remembered. Mary believed that Carrie had turned against her and that her big brother's interests were more important to Carrie than her close pal from their teen years. As a confidant asserted, Mary felt betrayed. On Tuesday, May 15th, Mary Kennedy, seemingly depressed after Carrie Kennedy's upsetting visit, was still in her pajamas at 10 a.m. when she usually was up and about, going off to the gym, doing her yoga, running errands. The Kennedys' longtime housekeeper later told police that she had, quote, noticed some changes in Mary. I thought something was wrong with her. I told Bobby about her, and I told him that she needs help. Bobby told me she doesn't want to help herself. Earlier on that Tuesday morning, the housekeeper was cleaning at Bobby's nearby home when she answered the phone and it was Mary, looking for her estranged husband. Because Bobby didn't pick up, Mary told the housekeeper to let the phone continue to ring until he answered. The phone, the housekeeper stated, rang for a lot of times after that, and Bobby never picked up. But later, Bobby would tell police that he had, in fact, taken a call from Mary that Tuesday morning, and self-servingly claimed, quote, "She told me that she was sorry for everything. She said that I was right about everything, and everything was her fault," according to his statement to investigators, a lengthy portion of which was redacted, presumably for privacy reasons. That morning, Mary had also questioned the household help, a married couple, about whether they had told Bobby that she had recently bought a new treadmill, a massage seat, and a cappuccino machine, all part of her newfound positive view of a healthy life. They told her they hadn't, and that Bobby had probably seen her credit card statement. Mary, said the housekeeper, quote, "looked mad and a little upset. I think she thought that we had told Bobby about the purchases, that the couple was spying on her for him." Credit cards and finances had become important to Mary. A petition filed in court by her lawyers stated, quote, "Unfortunately, the last months of Miss Richardson Kennedy's life were full of daily financial challenges, directly attributable to Mr. Kennedy's litigation tactics executed through his family office." Under an arrangement, Mary was to have a $20,000 a month expense limit on a credit card to be paid by the Park Agency, the Kennedy family's money handlers in New York. But, according to the petition, the deal was ended in order to squeeze her and make her panic regarding child custody and other issues. Around 3 in the afternoon on that Tuesday after Carrie Kennedy's visit, Mary came down to the kitchen and took one of the juices that the housekeeper had earlier prepared and said she was a little tired and returned to her bedroom. "That was the last time I saw her or talked to her," the housekeeper told police. "My husband asked me if we should check on Mary, but I told him no because I didn't want to disturb her." By 8:30, the house was dark. On Wednesday, May 16th, 2012, around 10 in the morning, the housekeeper went to check on Mary, called out for her but got no response. She checked the bedroom, the bathroom, the office, and the kitchen, and saw that Mary's car was still in the driveway, but the mistress of the house was nowhere to be found. Returning to Mary's bedroom, the housekeeper and her husband discovered her eyeglasses, her cell phone, her car keys, and her wallet on the bed. Also on the bed, in a small tangle, was a short length of rope. After checking down by the large pond on the Kennedy property and peering into an open but usually closed garage bay, the household couple, now very concerned as to the mistress's whereabouts, telephoned Bobby, their employer for many years. "I told him we were worried," the housekeeper stated. Bobby came to the house from his place a short distance away and, with the housekeeper's husband, began yet another futile search. He later told police that he had gotten the call around 12:50 p.m. and that the housekeeper had, quote, "sounded very scared. I then decided to drive over there and help her and her husband look for Mary." In her bedroom, on the bed, he saw her stuff and the rope. "I then checked the attic and she wasn't there," he later told a detective, adding, quote, "Mary and I are near the end of a long process of divorce. We are under court order to sever contact and to stay away from each other's houses. Yesterday, Tuesday, she nevertheless called me repeatedly." Failing to find Mary anywhere in the house or on the sprawling estate grounds, Bobby drove to a nearby town to see if Mary had gone to an AA meeting, even though he had just seen her car keys on the bed and her car in the driveway. Unless someone had picked her up, there was no way she could have gotten there. A couple of people who knew Bobby at AA were surprised to see him because he hadn't been to a recent meeting. Mary had been telling people that Bobby should have been attending AA meetings because, as she claimed, he was popping painkillers and taking a drug called Klonopin that he said was for his voice problem, but is usually prescribed to treat panic or seizure disorders. That's interesting. I'm going to pause right there because, of course, the voice problem that they're referring to is the spasmodic dysphonia condition that he has that causes his voice to sound kind of gravelly, raspy, like he's choking when he speaks. But, this guy is the current Secretary of Health and Human Services in our country and likes to paint himself as the picture of good health at age 71. Wants to get everybody on a nice organic diet and make America healthy again. That's his pledge. But there has been quite a bit of speculation about what, if any, medications he might be taking. There's been talk that he might be taking anabolic steroids because the muscles that he has it doesn't seem to quite fit a man of his age for those to be all natural. And during his presidential campaign, there were questions about what, if any, medications he were taking. Bobby Kennedy did pledge to release his medical records during the campaign, but he never did. Back to the book. Bobby approached two women, one of whom had been Mary's AA sponsor some years earlier, and the woman who was her current sponsor, to find out if they had seen her. Both said they had not, but that she had been at Monday's meeting and had looked fantastic, had lost weight, and was doing yoga. The evening of that Monday was when Kerry Kennedy had confronted Mary. Bobby said he was worried, quote, "I think she's done something to herself," because Mary could not be found anywhere, and he noted that she had been missing since last night, Tuesday, and also had said that he'd found a piece of rope on her bed. Mary's sponsor told Bobby that Mary was doing well, that she had blossomed and had been in such a good place recently. Her remarks seemed to anger Bobby, she felt. He further claimed that the previous day, Tuesday, Mary had called him 17 times and had asked him to come back to her. Bobby said his response was, quote, "Mary, I am with somebody," presumably a reference to Cheryl Hines. Bobby, followed by Mary's sponsor, drove back to the Kennedy home and, for some reason, immediately began searching the wooded area of his property. Meanwhile, Mary's sponsor, along with the housekeeping couple, began searching the house again and checking the pond. Finally, the sponsor decided to inspect the second bay in the old garage, whose door was open. Inside, Mary was discovered hanging with a rope around her neck. As the housekeeper began screaming and crying, Mary's sponsor began yelling for Bobby and sounding the car horn, telling him to come to the garage. After 5 minutes or so, he finally responded and accompanied her to view his wife's body. He began crying and moaning, asked if she had telephoned the police, and when she told him she didn't have her phone with her, he called 911. At 1:51 p.m., an EMS medic pronounced Mary Richardson Kennedy dead. She was dressed in workout clothing and wearing sandals. Near her, on the floor, were 3 metal crates and a metal ladder, apparently used to stand on when she tied the hangman's knot. Concerned about how to tell his children, Bobby was overheard on his cell phone allegedly telling someone, quote, "Call her fucking family and tell them to get up here and help me with the kids." The person who overheard the call was shocked. When one of the officers asked Bobby to give a statement, he said he didn't have time and would do so later, which he did. But no significant interview was conducted with him at the scene, even though police were well aware of the bitter, ongoing divorce action and the previous domestic incidents, the many times they had responded to their home between Bobby and Mary Kennedy.
I want to get right to that tragedy that has struck the Kennedy family. The estranged wife of Robert Kennedy Jr., Mary Richardson, was found hanging in her garage yesterday. It looks like she killed herself. ABC's Claire Shipman has the latest from Washington. Claire, she had been trying to cope with some serious trouble.
She had, and Georgia, the family right now is grieving and in shock. We're told there will be an autopsy later today, and all we really know is that reportedly Mary was depressed and worried about her financial situation. ABC News has learned the 52-year-old estranged wife of Robert Bobby Kennedy Jr. was found in her family's Bedford, New York garage by a housekeeper Wednesday afternoon. Sources say the mother of four hanged herself. Police wouldn't comment. Overnight, Bobby Kennedy could be seen arriving at the house. The family is asking for privacy, but released a statement saying Mary was a genius at friendship, a tremendously gifted architect, and a pioneer. Also saying Mary inspired our family with her kindness, her love, her gentle soul, and generous spirit.
I'll miss her. I liked her very much. I really feel badly for her children.
Mary Richardson married RFK Jr., the son of slain political icon and former Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, in 1994. He, a prominent environmental lawyer, she, a successful architect and passionate advocate for green design. They were married more than 16 years, but they'd known each other much longer. Mary was a friend of Bobby's sister Carrie at boarding school. But the couple reportedly had problems, and Bobby Kennedy filed for divorce in 2010. That was never finalized, but as their relationship broke down, Mary struggled publicly with drug and alcohol problems and had two high-profile arrests that same year, one for driving under the influence of alcohol and then prescription drugs.
Any comments?
No, thank you.
But this chapter, horribly unexpected, and now a heartbreaking puzzle for her family and for the Kennedy clan, which has seen too many moments like this one. And Mary George leaves four children, as we mentioned, ranging in age from 18 to 11.
Oh, wow. Okay, Claire, thanks very much. Boy, that family has dealt with so much heartbreak.
They really have, and we're thinking of her children, especially this morning, George.
Chapter 37, Aftermath. On Thursday, May 17th, the day after Mary Richardson Kennedy hanged herself, an autopsy was performed by the Westchester County, New York medical examiner. She determined that Mary Kennedy had died of asphyxiation and found nothing suspicious about her death. She had strangled herself, her examination showed, with a beige-colored rope, 9/16 of an inch in diameter, the knot of which had 9 loops. She noted that some of Mary's fingers, which were bruised, were between the rope and her neck, suggesting that she might have tried to abort her suicide, which probably was a natural reaction. There was a brownish-red abrasion on the left side of her neck. The toxicology report showed no alcohol in her system, but there were levels of 3 prescription antidepressants, one of which carried a warning that it could cause suicidal thoughts. But Mary's psychiatrist subsequently stated that the drugs were Mary's normal dosage. In the immediate aftermath, her horrified family, the Richardsons, said in a statement, quote, "We deeply regret the death of our beloved Mary, whose radiant and creative spirit will be sorely missed by those who loved her. Our heart goes out to her children who she loved without reservation." Underscoring what was a long-time breach between the two families, the Kennedys then issued a separate statement, quote, "It is with deep sadness that the family of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. mourns the loss of Mary Richardson Kennedy, wife and mother of their 4 beloved children. Mary inspired our family with her kindness, her love, her gentle soul, and generous spirit." The statement went on to add that Mary was a tremendously gifted architect and a pioneer and a relentless advocate of green design who enhanced her cutting-edge, energy-efficient creations with exquisite taste and style. Those words were a far cry from some of the allegations that Bobby had earlier made against Mary in his affidavit that was mysteriously leaked to a journalist, that is, the Kennedy historian Lawrence Leamer, after her death, and that were picked up in some news reports.
Lawrence Leamer is out front tonight with much more of these revealing details. And Lawrence, what was the most shocking revelation that you learned from the affidavit, from all of these many interviews that you did with people close to the family?
I don't think it was just one. It was a magnitude of them. And frankly, the worst ones I didn't put in the article.
the abuse of the children. I just thought that was unnecessary, and I don't want people to view this as an evil woman. She was not an evil woman. She had borderline personality disorder.
I want to just read something from the affidavit, which
Please.
of course you provided. Bobby Kennedy says, quote, Mary's violence and physical abuse toward me began before we were married. Did you find sources to substantiate that claim?
Well, before he was married, he says that she was a trained boxer, and she hit him in the face with such strength that she hurt his eye ducts. If you see him now, he'll just start crying out of his left eye for no reason. Was because of this. A lot of this violence was just in the house. The children saw it, the housekeeper saw it, but the people outside the house didn't see it.
And what did the housekeeper tell you about the final days?
The last weekend, her kids were in private schools. She went to see them. And the children were delighted. Here was Mom. She was okay now. Mm-hmm. She was seeing them. She was seeing the teachers. She was so joyful and happy. When she saw one of her sons, the housekeeper went with her, and they stayed overnight in a hotel. And the housekeeper said the next morning they woke up and Mary was crying. Why are you crying? Because my children. And the housekeeper said, well, you'll be fine with the children. And the housekeeper didn't know that she was saying goodbye to her children.
And it's such a tragic tale. I do want to share what the Richardson family has responded, obviously. And I'll just read this to you. They said, Mary's unconditional love for her children and unwavering support of so many people she held close to her heart are the lasting legacies of her life. Our hearts are breaking for what her children continue to witness. We hoped Mary could rest in peace. And then they also speak about the affidavit. The affidavit, which Mary repudiated at the time, is full of vindictive lies. The false claim that Mary suffered from borderline personality disorder is also an insult to those who do struggle with this serious mental illness. There will be a time and a place for the true facts to come out.
The description of Mary carried by certain news organizations since her passing yesterday, the Richardson family later told CNN, quote, is wholly inconsistent with the sister we knew and the life she, in fact, lived. Countless people have described her as an extraordinary mother, selfless in her desire to help others, and one of the finest people in the world. We know her as all those things and more. While Bobby had told people that some of Mary's sisters planned to attend the Kennedy family-arranged funeral, not one member of the Richardson family showed up. They privately blamed Bobby for causing her to end her life, aware of his philandering and his emotionally abusive treatment of her. The Kennedy service was at St. Patrick's Roman Catholic Church in Bedford, not far from the Kennedy home, on Saturday, May 19th. Bobby, in his eulogy, used the opportunity to reject any and all blame, directly or indirectly, for her death. Quote, I know I did everything I could to help her, he maintained. Quote, the day before she died and called me and said, you know me better than anyone in the world, she said. I was such a good girl. I said, I know you are, and you still are. She really fought so hard. She had these demons, and she didn't deserve it. In the filled-to-capacity Kennedy Church, where Bobby's 4 children with Mary had their first communions, celebrities who knew the couple, Larry David, Glenn Close, Chevy Chase, Susan Sarandon, Edward James Olmos, John McEnroe, but not Cheryl Hines, mourned for Mary Kennedy. Among other Kennedy family members attending the service were his mother, Ethel, a veteran of many Klan tragedies, and Bobby's cousin, Caroline Kennedy Schlossberg, the soon-to-be-named U.S. ambassador to Japan, who had lost her father, mother, and brother. And I will pause here to add that also in that crowd of celebrities at the funeral was the infamous Ghislaine Maxwell, who she and Jeffrey Epstein both knew Bobby and Mary quite well over a period of many years, and there are photographs, if you've never seen them, of Ghislaine Maxwell, who's now serving time in a federal prison for sex trafficking of minors, along with the late Jeffrey Epstein. Of course, when this book was written in 2015 by Jerry Oppenheimer, not much was known yet about Epstein and Maxwell and what they were up to. That would all come in the years ahead, so it's not included in Oppenheimer's book, and I thought that was kind of an important detail that I wanted to throw in there. Back to the book. Mary, quote, Bobby told them all, was the most extraordinary woman I ever met. I had feelings for her I will never have for another human being. but he would later marry Cheryl Hines, his longtime girlfriend. In a eulogy written by Kerry Kennedy entitled Ode to My Best Friend, Mary Richardson Kennedy, that appeared in the Huffington Post, Bobby's sister raved about what a wonderful woman Mary had been. She noted that when Bobby married Mary, quote, "I have never seen two people more thoroughly enchanted with one another and more completely in love. They brought out the best in one another and spoke about each other with wonder and awe. And even at the more difficult times, they were still devoted to one another, compassionate, caring, and concerned." Of course, there was no mention by Kerry, who was president of the Robert F. Kennedy Center for Justice and Human Rights, of her brother's philandering, or the effect of the bitter divorce, both of which might have been said to contributed to Mary's suicide. Like many of the Kennedys, Kerry was an expert at spin. And, like some of the Kennedys, she had been a reputed cheater herself, such as in her much-publicized affair during her troubled marriage to Andrew Cuomo. At the same time that Kerry was praising Mary as a popular, beautiful, extraordinarily bright student and creative woman, she also emphasized what she claimed was Mary's dark side, fighting back, quote, "the demons who were trying to invade the paradise of her very being," as she put it. She claimed that Mary, quote, "suffered from depression for the last 6 years or more," and went on to assert that the depression had existed for as long as I knew her, stating that it had reared up in high school, college, and beyond. Buried in Kerry's narrative, in just one brief paragraph, was a mention of what she characterized as her pleasant visit on Monday night, May 14th, 3 days before Mary killed herself. The Richardsons, meanwhile, held a private memorial service at the stylish Standard Hotel in Manhattan's trendy meatpacking district on a rainy Monday, May 21st. That service concluded with the playing of a recording of Proud Mary by Ike and Tina Turner. The Richardson family had battled unsuccessfully in court over which family, they or the Kennedys, controlled Mary's remains. Bobby won that fight because he was still legally her spouse. They were not yet divorced, and so she was buried in a plain wooden casket in St. Francis Cemetery in Centerville, Massachusetts, where Bobby's Aunt Eunice was interred. But a few weeks later, she was exhumed by Bobby Kennedy. He literally had her dug up and moved to another grave 700 feet away in the same cemetery under cover of darkness, without telling anybody, without asking the Richardsons or getting a permit for moving the body. Very strange. And that move did spark some controversy in the press. Within a few months of Mary's suicide, Bobby put their home in Mount Kisco on the market for almost $4 million. When he and his first wife, Emily, bought that house in 1985, they had paid just $745,000. The home's value had soared in part as a result of Mary's green renovation. 2 months after the Mary Kennedy tragedy, her best friend, Kerry Kennedy, was arrested. On the morning of July 13th, 2012, she had mistakenly taken the controversial prescription sleeping pill Ambien instead of her thyroid medication. On her way to the gym in her Lexus SUV, she slammed into a tractor-trailer truck, but continued driving until she was found by a motorist nearby, slumped over the steering wheel, but not seriously injured. One theory, first offered by her doctors, was that she had suffered a complex partial seizure as the result of a previous unexplained head injury. But toxicology tests showed that she had ingested the strong sleeping medication. Just days before she went on trial in late February 2014, the New York Post columnist Andrew Pazer wrote that Bobby had called her and pleaded with her for compassion when writing about the latest Kennedy scandal. He asserted that his 54-year-old sister, the seventh born of RFK and Ethel Kennedy's children, deserved to be considered innocent because she had done so many good deeds for humanity throughout her life, Mother Teresa-like. He boasted that she had been, quote, instrumental in freeing political prisoners and dissidents from around the globe from imprisonment and torture, and made the far-fetched claim, with no supporting evidence, that if she were to be convicted at her trial on the misdemeanor drug driving rap and put in jail, political agitators and gay Africans could wind up being imprisoned, tortured, or even killed. Ethel Kennedy, 2 months away from her 86th birthday, showed up at the White Plains, New York courthouse, confined to a wheelchair and surrounded by concerned family members, friends, and assorted entourage. The matriarch's aged condition generated much sympathetic media and courtroom attention. A veteran of many Kennedy courtroom dramas through the years, Ethel knew very well how to play her role. When Carrie took the stand in her own defense, she also played the Kennedy card to the hilt, invoking her murdered father, telling the 6-member jury, quote, "Daddy was the Attorney General during the Civil Rights Movement, and then a senator. He was assassinated while running for president." Not surprisingly, she was acquitted. The New York Times pointed out that the not guilty verdict came with some irony. While the prosecution had, in part, put Carrie Kennedy on trial to show that she wasn't being given favored treatment because of her name, quote, "It was her very prominence as a Kennedy that helped her mount a defense that made prosecutors look inept and even heartless." At the close of the 4.5-day trial, Ethel Kennedy was miraculously out of her wheelchair and jauntily walking arm in arm with her victorious daughter. Some 6 months after Mary Kennedy's tragic end, a joyous Cheryl Hines accompanied a seemingly contented Bobby to Paris to celebrate his 18-year-old daughter Kyra's formal debut at the debutante ball in 2013. Kyra, who very closely resembled her late mother, was among 20 debutantes chosen exclusively for the ball. On a drizzly Saturday, August 2nd, 2014, in the Kennedy compound in Hyannisport, 60-year-old Bobby married the 48-year-old divorcee Cheryl Hines, who became his third wife. A Unitarian Universalist minister officiated the wedding. Not long after, the newlyweds purchased a $5 million gated estate with a recording studio and a 2-story treehouse that was advertised as a Connecticut compound in Malibu, according to Variety. Hines had sold her 5-bedroom, 4-bath gated Cape Cod-style home in the Tony Bel Air section of Los Angeles. She had bought that bachelorette pad for nearly $3 million after her 2010 divorce. Shortly after marrying Bobby, she put it on the market for $3 million. Bobby's sister, Rory, the filmmaker, had also bought a home in Malibu, a foreclosed gem of an estate with an ocean view, for $2.9 million. Some in the Kennedy circle believed that Bobby was leading part of the third generation in a migration west from the Kennedys' old domains back east, as a way to put behind them the haunting tragedies and scandals of the past. Before becoming a Kennedy wife, Cheryl Ruth Hines had been married for almost 8 years to a Hollywood producer and manager, Paul R. Young, who had helped her with her acting career. Hines married Young, reportedly a descendant of the Mormon Church founder and polygamist Brigham Young, on December 30th, 2002. 2 years later, Hines gave birth to a daughter who was named Catherine Rose. Paul Young was a handsome, bright English literature major at Swarthmore College, but with dreams of becoming a movie and TV mogul. When he first moved to Hollywood in the early 1990s, he worked as a waiter. His first job in a creative field was as an assistant to the Variety editor Peter Bart, a one-time studio executive who had written a book about Mormon culture and was also a Swarthmore alumnus. According to Bart, who profiled Young for Variety in 2010, quote, "He didn't know a damn thing about the entertainment business, but soon Paul was deciding who I should talk to on the phone and who I should ignore." Bart readily concluded that Paul Young was a, quote, "smart hustler." In the late 90s, Young had gone into partnership with Peter Principato, a Long Island-raised graduate of Adelphi University, where he was vice president of the junior and senior classes. By the age of 24, he was one of the youngest talent agents at William Morris. He and Young later formed Principato Young Entertainment, which managed a stable of comedic actors, including Cheryl Hines, and that's when she and Young began their relationship. It was in late July of 2010 that Young filed for divorce from Hines, citing the boilerplate Hollywood reason, irreconcilable differences, with property rights to be determined. Unlike Bobby's first wife, Emily, who was a Phi Beta Kappa in college, got a law degree, and served as a legal aid attorney in New York City, and unlike his second wife, Mary, who graduated near the top of her Ivy League class and became a talented architectural designer, Cheryl Hines' claim to academic fame was as homecoming queen, elected as a write-in candidate for her class of 1983 at Tallahassee's public Leon High School. The daughter of a building contractor father and a state employee mother, Hines later claimed to her hometown newspaper that she won the title because of the, quote, dork and chorus nerd vote. Those were my people. I was not the prettiest or the most popular girl in school. I never got the big part in Tallahassee Young Actors Theater musicals because I wasn't a very good singer. When the group was casting for a production of The Sound of Music, Hines didn't get the Julie Andrews part. She played a nun. For a time after high school, she attended the University of Central Florida. Then she drove west to Hollywood to pursue an acting career. For a time, she waitressed and then became a personal assistant to Rob Reiner. She studied improv and sketch comedy with the Groundlings before landing her first TV roles, the biggest of which was as the perky wife of the very Jewish and neurotic Larry David character on HBO's black humor sitcom Curb Your Enthusiasm. For her role, she earned a couple of Emmy nominations and a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. But her most successful role was her part in the Kennedy clan drama. "They are a lot like other families," she once said, "except they are the Kennedys." After she married Bobby, Cheryl Hines expressed her excitement about having the iconic Kennedy name and boasted about going to the White House with her groom to see her new mother-in-law, Ethel, receive the 2014 Presidential Medal of Freedom. Ethel's daughter, Carrie, who made the announcement, stated that her widowed mother, quote, is so deserving of this award. The medal, the nation's highest civilian honor, was being kept in the family. It had been established by JFK in 1963. In noting the trip to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue Northwest, Bobby's bride was noted in the press as saying that her life with him was, quote, spicier and a lot of laughs. She said, "People in my circle tend to look at people in politics as being boring, but that wasn't the case," she said, with her second husband, even though he wasn't in politics yet. In his sixth decade, Bobby had begun yet another domestic life with his third wife. The couple's close pal, Larry David, had even told Bobby before he married Cheryl, "Nothing you ever do will rattle her." A decades-long friend of Bobby's, who was among the 300 guests at the Kennedy-Hines wedding, was mystified as to why Cheryl married Bobby, since his history as a womanizer had become so public and was entwined in scandal. As the friend later observed, quote, "Any woman who gets involved with Bobby does so with her eyes open or their brains lopped off. Any woman who thinks they're going to change Bobby is misguided and purposefully ignorant. Women have to understand what they're getting into when they're with him. You can hate it, you can make excuses for it, you can do whatever you want to do. It doesn't change the fact that he has a long history of doing certain things. And if you think, wow, I'll be different, then you're fucked." And that is the end of that chapter. And we're almost to the end of this book. All that remains is the epilogue, which we will do on the next episode of The Dark Side of RFK Jr. I think it's a very powerful epilogue, and you should definitely tune in for that one. So be sure to subscribe to the channel, click that notifications bell, and you'll be notified as soon as that episode is posted. Until next time, take care. I'm your friend, Lori Spencer.